So do you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go down the line, and then we'll get started with questions.
Absolutely. 30 years in the workforce, so let me give you my Reader's Digest version. First generation college student, raised by the boomers who said, get a good job with a good company, take care of the company, and the company will take care of you. Sounded great on paper. Went to work for the world's largest company, moved out of my hometown with one stoplight and a 45-minute commute to the closest McDonald's. Went to work for Walmart, 6 states, 13 addresses, and a husband. So when you go to Target and you leave with stuff that's not on your list, I still won. When we were moving from Virginia Beach to Indiana, looking for a place to live, somewhere in the mountains in Tennessee over beef jerky and Sour Patch Kids, existential conversations take place. What would you do if money didn't matter? And he said, I would be a teacher. And I said, me too. So we moved here. We both went back to school. My husband has spent 17 years in the same classroom teaching 7th grade social studies and coaching junior high sports. He's an absolute saint. I'm a prize at the end of that day. I, on the other hand, taught high school, 3 different buildings, 3 different school districts for 8 years, went back and got an MBA to teach at the college level, spent time at various universities teaching undergrad and graduate level marketing. Finally decided higher ed is coming into a disruption that they are not quite prepared for. And I was already an outlier in that. How do you survive it? You go. So I left being a full-time educator for the first time in 18 years and went to what I thought was my dream job in last year in March at Tech Point, and it was an amazing job, just not for me. So I am on the last portion of the bingo card that anybody would have had for me. I work at an accounting firm. I can barely spell accounting, but I am their training development coordinator, and I cannot tell you how much I love my job. I wake up feeling guilty every single day. I absolutely love it. So that's my long story.
Thank you so much, Anna. Next, we have Nicole Maclean, who I want to throw out there. We had another gentleman who was supposed to join us today in the panel. Unfortunately, he got sick, and I think we've all learned enough in the past couple years that you keep your germs at home. So thank you to him for agreeing to be here, but then also agreeing to keep us all safe. So Nicole, she's a last minute. We brought her in today thanks to Anna introduced us. So Nicole Maclean, tell us all about you.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. So thankful and lucky to be here. So I know I can't call her Anna because she was my high school teacher so I at least have dropped the Mrs. She is now just Stumpf.
Yeah.
But is still Mrs. Stumpf in my cell phone, as she discovered last time she saw my phone. But I'm in marketing, actually, thanks to her. So when we talk about that, it's a pretty cool story. I'm currently the head of growth marketing for a company called Composely. I'm the only Indiana employee, so you probably have never heard of the company. Based in Seattle, but we're a content writing service, so marketing to marketers. So my journey is not nearly as cool as the Walmart.
Not nearly as old.
Fair. But yeah, I would say I thought my dream job was going to be in brand and being a brand manager at Procter & Gamble. And then I had the fortunate opportunity to intern at Exact Target and learn all these acronyms like SaaS and B2B and ARR. And I was like, this is where I'm meant to be. And I've kind of been on the startup journey since then. So I started as an OR fellow, was at Amplify for 5 years, just left 120 Water about 8 months ago, and have been at Composely since then.
Awesome. And then last but certainly not least, Tom Bratton. Please tell us a little bit more about you.
So I was CEO of a company called Medallion Partners, which is an organizational strategy consulting company as well as executive search company, and most recently founded a company called Coda with a friend of mine named Ro. We have a whole philosophy around how to manage your career and own your career effectively, and it's a career management platform built for the individual that lives throughout your entire career. So that's one or a couple things we're working on quite specifically. My career has many twists and turns in it, and started with companies like Gillette and Clorox doing a lot of classic sales and marketing brand work, and then evolving based on most of my personal dynamics, which included my wonderful wife of 30 years telling me I was a complete idiot, terrible husband, and a bad father, which really puts a shocker in where your career choices go. So we'll talk about that more later. But there's a lot of interesting facts that finding joy, peace, and happiness in the circuitous route that is your career is something we're pretty passionate about, particularly with Medallion and Coda. And my own personal sort of purpose statement that has evolved out of that is that here to serve people in their business and in their career. So as we talk to you tonight, I think that's a key for us to help pour into you, not only tonight, but also as we go forward and have to deal with this wonderful, crazy world.
Mhm.
So
Lovely. Well, thank you again for being here. I just realized I didn't even tell you who I am. So you're all like, who's this lady? I wandered in from the street. No, my name's Jenna Kinley. I'm one of the co-founders of Indy Marketers. In my professional life, I'm the director of web strategy for a really large company that you would probably call Publicis Sapient if you saw it on paper, but it's a French company, so it's Publicis Sapient. But yeah, I've been doing that. I've been there for just over a year. I've also had a career journey, but we're not here to talk about me today. So, well, that's the after party. Yeah. I didn't have any wine, so just wait. Afterward, I'll finish whatever's left over and I'll tell you everything. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and get started. I think one of the lovely things is we got to connect before this panel, and we all were in agreement that we felt like the best way to kick off this conversation is to ask the question, how do you define a dream job? Because it could be vastly different for each person. So we'll start with that one, and then a follow-on from that, which we'll take after you go through your definition of a dream job, is talking through the strategy, like what you would recommend to people who want to pursue. So who has it? You do. All right.
They passed it back. It was very brave. So as I mentioned my father and his message to me growing up. And I will tell you, I usually give the warning in a group that I'm going to talk about generations because I'm a marketing professor and we're the ones that invented generations. So we could put you in categories to sell you more stuff. But that's a pretty easy sell in a group like this. So forget that. But I do believe generational trends are super important. So when I saw that, the person who reached out and asked me to be here is always going to get a yes from me. So I was like, yeah, I'm coming. But then I really kind of sat in the moment with the title of this and had a moment because I'm like, dream job's kind of a trigger for me because I feel like that feels like some of that. Alexis Ohanian, if you know, one of the co-founders of Reddit, married to Serena Williams, calls these things like hustle porn type of clickbait stuff around dream jobs and side hustles and all of this gig economy type stuff. He's like, you have to be very careful with it, which I agree with, right? Like, what is your dream job? And when I was in classrooms, I would urge my students, think of a person doing a job or that you revere in the business or professional world that you would love to sit down and pick their brain, right? Just think of that person in your mind, dead or alive, wherever. Please understand that whatever got that person to notoriety, fame, fortune, success is not your journey, right? And I used to lay awake at night as an educator and think, how am I supposed to prepare students for a world I can't imagine? I watched a lot of Jetsons as a kid. I thought for sure at 30, which felt really old back then, that I would be Judy Jetson. Like I'd have the food coming out of the ceiling. I'd have the robo dog and the maid and the flying car. And here I sit at 51, I don't have any of that cool stuff. And we're all fighting over Chat GPT, right? What is it? I don't know, but I can tell you what I do know is we are in Industry 4.0. 5.0 is coming, and it is a short-term gig, right? It is a completely different mindset than the high school and the college classroom is teaching you, and the people that came before you that are urging you and supporting you with their journey. I do think it's super important to engage with your network. I think it's important to know, but the most important thing I could tell you, your dream job is going to fluctuate as your life cycle. Think about yourself like a product, right? Product life cycle. Think of early adopters and all this. Wherever you are in your cycle, that's going to constantly change, as is the environment. What my dream job was a year ago, not my dream job today. And I'm on the like sunset version of this gig, right? If you're just starting out and you're looking at that, do not set yourself up to fail with like cliche terms in terms of that. And I think Brian, who couldn't be here tonight, had a really poignant thing on our planning call where he talked about jobs versus vocation, or careers even versus like calling or vocation, when you think about like what is important to you. And that will change throughout your life. So it's a tough one to sit here, and I would struggled with like, do I show up and not call out the fact that dream job feels like to me, right? Because short term, I used to tell my students pre-pandemic that like Department of Labor says people in Gen Z 10 to 13 jobs before you're 35. And I jokingly used to say, go home and tell your parents that, but don't let them have food in their mouth. Like, don't do it at the Thanksgiving table because they will absolutely positively choke. That is not their journey. Like, don't do that. But that is your journey. And now we're really moving towards a skills-based, and like some of the stuff Tom's working on, it's super important that you understand who you are. Nicole made a comment when we got here, like, in your youth, for so many years, it's all about fitting in. And then all of a sudden, at some point in your journey, we flip a switch and we talk about your personal brand and differentiation, tell your story. And you're like, what? Where did that come from? You just sideswiped me with that. And now I'm supposed to have a dream job and a passion? Don't get me started on the P word. That's a whole nother.
We'll save passion
we're
for
done.
the end.
We're ending there. Yeah, I agree. The dream job, like I thought working at Procter & Gamble was the dream job for me until I went and saw it and talked to people in it. And I still remember I had breakfast with someone who was doing the job I wanted, smart recruiting thing, because it helped me know that was not the fit for me. But she was sitting and talking about this huge project she was working on. It's been 6 months, like all of this like ownership she had. And the punchline was that she was on Cascade, and her project for 6 months was adding 3 pods to a package. And I remember sitting there like, don't want to burst your bubble, but that sounds soul crushing. Like that's all that's all you've accomplished. Like I know there's a lot in packaging and SKUs and enablement and all that good stuff. And then I went to Amplify, and we launched a company in 6 weeks and sold 2 previous companies in the span of 6 months. And I was like, oh, this is very different pace. But when I think about dream job, I went to Ball State, chirp, chirp. And in our business ed class, I remember they asked us they had like a list of attributes, and we were supposed to rank what was most important to us in a job, like the industry, the product, the location, the flexibility, the mission. And I remember sitting there being like, I don't know, I'll market. Like I'm 20, how am I supposed to know like what's important? And then you get a job and you meet people and you kind of realize what things are. And then I feel like those attributes start to come into place, and that might change. It should change as you grow. But I think for me, like what I found I really value is people. Like, I work too much, so I would rather work too much with people I like, and it feels like I'm hanging out with friends than, giving my soul to someone that doesn't reciprocate that. So like I learned that that's a major part of what a dream job looks like for me. And I think you just have to define that. And I'm sure you're kind of gave a little preface on like your personal values. I'm single, don't have kids or a wife or a husband to be like, you're being a bad parent and a bad spouse right now. So like that doesn't have to take into my view of what a dream job is, but that probably fits into what you view as a dream job. So I think it is this like ever adapting, evolving definition, but I think you have to be aware of that and do the personal work to reflect and to be aware of that. It doesn't just fall in your lap. Like I think you have to own that journey and recognize what it is you do and don't want.
Relate a couple things that you both said, 'cause I think it was really important. The passion word for me and the career orientation is struggle. So I've found a way to sort of gateway that a little bit, which is famous philosopher once said, the journey of life is about educating your passions. So that's a good thing. I relate this now to the dream job, going to Gillette, working there, moved through jobs. I was living in Kansas City. My wife and I were living in Kansas City. They said, hey, we want to move you to headquarters, which is a good thing. Move to headquarters, you're like, oh, wow, they're moving the hick from the stick to Boston. They called me Forrest Gump for the first 6 months I was there, just to let you know. And I remember literally getting my dream job. Like the guy, his name was Ron, he was the president of Gillette North America. He came in and he goes, Tom, this is great. We're promoting you. You're going to be a account manager, regional account manager for Gillette. And I literally teared up. It was true.
Like you were across from Gillette Stadium, right?
Well, different. Yeah. We're in the Prudential in Boston. Yeah, exactly. So, but I'm literally sitting there across from him, and I'm shaken at this point because I kind of did something that I didn't think I was going to do, and it was an aspirational thing. And Ron looks at me and he goes, hey, dude, if this is your dream, I'm disappointed in you. I was like, well, I mean, it rocked me. And it was physical. I was like, what? Wait, I got mad. I'm like, what? Dude, I'm proud of this moment. He goes, no. I get that. Great. Congratulations. I want to give you this promotion. Rah, rah. But you don't even know what's possible yet. Right? So keep going. Like having a dream as your passion that fuels you to go get the thing is an intermediary step and you educate it, right? You fulfill the knowledge gain on that and you pursue it as hard as you can. You try to be excellent in that thing so you can have choice in terms of what's possible for you in your career by being excellent and educating yourself along the way. That's right, the continuous education, the continuous learning. We're all continuous learners, all that sort of stuff. But it's in essence, it's educating our passions along the way that we find that we go along. My wife gave me a pretty big piece of information, which was she wasn't going to be around if I kept doing what I was doing. I had offices in 4 countries and I was doing a lot of cool stuff and my ego was off the charts and you fly, in certain ways and you do all these kind of cool things. That wasn't going well. Been married for 30 years, so we're good. But 3 kids, great. But I mean, they're kind of morons, but they're great. Just kidding. Yeah, pretty much. I'm kidding. But the point of that is that there is a dynamic with which if you can identify some things that you're passionate about and use that as fuel, wonderful. Educate it though. Don't fall in love with it that way and keep your eyes up. Now, here's the one thing that we like to talk about, which goes back to what you started to get into, which is your values, right? Those may or may not change all that much. There are things that start to neurologically start developing in you when you're like in the womb. By the way, this is like physiological stuff. So like there are strengths and there are activities and things you value more. I value things that you don't value the same, right? That's a good thing, right? So identifying that in the way that you can pursue a purpose, right? Purposes are wonderful. Your why, your mission, whatever terminology you want to use of the day, that one becomes very important. Now, I'm going to articulate something that becomes very important, which I think you guys both hit on, which is the measure of success of your life, as documented by a lot of different philosophers through time and even most recent business people, is it will be measured in the positive impact you have on others. So your purpose is, in essence, through measurement of other and doing the good of the other, in essence, right? So what can you be really good at that fosters benefit either to your customer, your client, your team, your leadership, your market, your family, right? Whatever that is, it's driving you, that fuels you, is driven from some sort of purpose that you're going to make the biggest impact you can make through your work, hopefully, and you feel like that's the fuel, right? So you want to be your best to that purpose, whatever that is for you. And they're all different because all your values are different and your purpose comes off of what you value. So as we orient, we'll change P words from passion, and dream goes with passion, right? Vocation goes with purpose a little bit more. So now we're starting to get our heads on the horizon. There's probably more important things that keep us from just changing jobs for $5, hoping it's the passion thing. But you can educate it and be free to be your best self in that condition. That's the stuff that works the most with people as we help them in their career over the last 6 or 7 years on this topic.
I think one thing to keep in mind is, like, as someone who is an Orr Fellow surrounded by high achieving people that are absolutely insane, and working in tech where you have overinflated titles because they can't pay you, so they make up titles to make you feel cool. I do think LinkedIn has been a really hard thing to balance when you see people getting promotions or like getting that title or feeling it, and you're like, oh, but I like my job right now. It's getting me where I need to go. I like the people. It serves like whatever it is. And then you see like 8 people be like, that's not happening as much anymore because 2023. But for a while, it's been a lot of overinflated titles. Obviously, people share the good. And then it almost makes you question, like, am I doing the right thing? Am I on the right path? I haven't gotten that thing. And I think it's important to just, what you said, like, know your values, know what you're looking for, and then don't feel like you have to apologize for that. Or maybe we were talking earlier, one of your coworkers at the accounting firm who's amazing, could be a partner, doesn't want to be a partner, doesn't want the politics, doesn't want the whatever, but is one of the best resources at the firm, but has the time, the flexibility to be a great grandmother, to be a great daughter, be a great mom, because that's her dream job, even though it's not necessarily like the highest on the ladder. Even though she has all the capability to reach that, that doesn't mean you have to.
There's some prevailing themes that I'm hearing in what all 3 of you shared, and really it's if there's one thing I personally am walking away with, it's like, really go gut check yourself. Like, what you think right now is your dream job might not be. And Anna, I have the exact same experience as you. I knew what my dream job was in college. I got it a few years ago. I made it a year by like the skin of my teeth. I loved that company, but I hated it. I loved everyone I worked with mostly, but I hated it. And that was a teaching moment for me. That's what kind of pushed me off the concept of a dream job. And I actually started making a list of stuff I would not put up with anymore, which has like worked well for me. But because I'm hearing that a couple of us have had that experience, I want to see, like, by a show of hands, how many of you have gone to your dream job and found out it was a nightmare? Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
My
I'm
nightmare,
sorry, but
not somebody else's nightmare,
well,
but
right.
yeah.
Yeah, for you personally. But again, that goes back to what I'm hearing the 3 of you saying is like, check in with you, because you might be lying to you a little bit, or you might not be asking yourself the right questions. So in that same vein, before we move on, I just want to throw out there, for any of you who have ever been at your dream job and hated it, or any of you who are potentially embarking on that, please forgive yourself. It took me a really long time. I went through this whole like crisis where I was like, who am I? I don't know me. It's okay. Like, again, you learn from it. So,
Well, yeah, and I heard a really great like analysis, like Anderson Cooper had a real quick like documentary podcast type thing around grief because he was cleaning up his mother's condo to get it ready to sell, like Gloria Vanderbilt. Like imagine this, right? Like, we don't talk about death and grief very much, but it's the one thing we're all guaranteed. Like, we're gonna experience, it's gonna happen to us. It's weird how we are as a society. But he's cleaning this out and he's like, I gotta throw all this junk out. So he grabs this stack of papers off her desk, and at the top is like a telegram from Frank Sinatra, because his mom had a brief affair with Frank Sinatra, and underneath that was a handwritten note from Marilyn Monroe, because she had been to Gloria Vanderbilt's apartment for dinner one night. And he's like, now suddenly I'm worried about like turning this over to the Smithsonian, and I'm trying to deal with the fact I just buried my mom. It's very weird. But he had this guy on, they were talking about like, this guy had like people in his family that had committed suicide. His twin sister committed suicide. And now he was like a psychologist specialist in this area. So Anderson says to him kind of the obvious question, do you think you developed a passion for this because of what happened in your formative years? The man's response almost made me had to pull my car over. He said, aren't we all passionate about something in our past we're trying to make peace with? And it hit me why we are just absolute frauds for standing in front of young people talking about passion, because you haven't lived. You haven't had those experiences that, like, yes, you have to go through those things and learn and have your values challenged and have those things where you're questioning, like, why did I want this? Because I got it and I don't want it now. Like, it's hard. And I had that this year, in 2022, where I literally have my job posting from Tech Point framed Because if you knew me for 5 minutes and you read that, you'd be like, oh my God, girl, you've got it. You reached the top of the mountain. Look at you. And I'm 4 weeks in going, no. And 20-year-old Anna, 30-year-old Anna, 40-year-old Anna, 48-year-old Anna would have white knuckled that and made it work. Because that's what she asked for, right? That's what she want. But Anna today, whose husband, by the way, had a heart attack Easter weekend, 3 weeks after I took my dream job, last year, not today, a year ago. Like, all of a sudden, values, things, life looks so completely different. And here are two thoughts I had. I can't keep this job because I'm keeping somebody else from this amazing organization. I'm still out recruiting for TechPoint because it's amazing. It's a wonderful role, just not for me. And to have the ability and the self-awareness to be able to say that is liberating to the point where you're just like, but if I not had the journey I'd had and the experiences I've had, because you get that, like, I was looking for a job and I found this one. Like, that's a different cliche mindset than I have skills, I'm going to be okay eventually. That's different, right? Like, but it is like a level of self-awareness that you have to have and you have to really sit with, and you can't, like, what is it? I don't know. We credit Brene Brown, but I actually think it was like a Roosevelt said, like, comparison is the thief of joy. And that's kind of what you're alluding to with this LinkedIn thing. Like, everybody loves that positive vibe on LinkedIn, not so much in 2023. So it's a great point, but yeah, there's a lot there.
Okay, so I felt like this was a good follow-up from how the conversation is going, but when do you know that it's time for you to start looking for your next role? Like, what in your experiences or in coaching friends and family have you seen? Like, what are some signs?
You are the CEO of your own business. And there's a there's a market out there for you. And by the way, you shouldn't be no matter what's going on today with all the changes that have happened in the marketplace, you are in need. I mean, in huge need. Like, your skills are going to be applicable to lots of places. So be of the market, I think is the bigger point of being open to what's possible is more important than over-evaluating every minute you spend at your current job. So one thing that we talk about a lot is work on your career, not just in your career. And that means be of the market. Understand what's possible in the market for yourself. This is not a trained thing. Corporate entities don't want you to do this. They want you to show up and do what they want you to do, which is beautifully awesome for them. Yet, in no time ever, nor how it will be for the next really 30 to 50 years, the strength and the controls are actually in this room with you as an individual, and you are not armed to do that very well in today's marketplace because most of the tools are coming off of the companies, right? So that's going to change, right? That's going to continue to evolve, I should say. It's already been changing, but it's going to continue to evolve. So be of the market and do your own natural market research as the CEO of your business. Always be of the market. Always be thinking about this. If you play a musical instrument, if you go to school outside of your work, if you are into a sport or you like working out a certain way or whatever you like to do something that's for your career outside of the job you're doing. Okay, that includes networking as an example, with real intent, like to learn, to be educated, to find out what's going on in the marketplace. And then as you understand the marketplace, now evaluate your company, right? And really challenge your company to meet you and align with you on what you're trying to do in your own development and your own evolution as a person. And if you have real authentic, and I am a big believer of don't ever leave a company without challenging them to do the thing that you think you should do together, right? Don't ghost, don't leave, you can be pissed if you want, that's fine, but solve for it. It's a great way to learn how to be a business doing business with your business, if you will. So as you do that and you document yourself and you know yourself, like beginning of all wisdom is knowing yourself. That's not me, that's a guy named Socrates, so I stole it. But that knowledge base about who you are coming off of these experiences and why isn't this working? Should I start looking for a job? Maybe, but maybe you start looking for a job when you're happy, like me. I should have probably started looking for a job. And Ron said, hey, dude, you know, you can do more than this. And I went, oh. And then I went to the marketplace and actually found out I could. That was a good thing. It wasn't because I was mad. It was because he actually opened my eyes and gave me a real gift that day. So as you think about it, be of the market, consider what your strengths, your gifts, what your potentialities are, your values, your purpose, and continue to sort that out. But approach your current company first. Have the good conversation about where you want to go. If they can't align with you, have a very honest conversation about, well, I'm probably going to be interested in doing that, not this. And it's natural for you to part ways, right? So I would say that part of the process for me has always been found to be more fruitful. I used to have a rule in my companies, and I've run some companies. And I used to say to all people who reported me directly, and I told them to tell their people who reported them directly, you should be interviewing twice a year, right? Do it. And come back to me and tell me what I'm not doing for you. That's what you want, is you want people always learning what they could be to be their best self, and they will always reward you if you give them that space. Last comment. We did an analysis with a bunch of CEOs of large companies recently over the last couple of years, and we said, would you like to have people coming to you with their development plan? We talked about 87 CEOs. How many of them said, yes, we would like to have people coming to us with their development plan that we can align to? What percentage?
All of them.
All of them. Every single one of them said, holy crap, that'd be great. Because our PMP, IDP system sucks. And it probably pisses our people off more than it helps them. So take ownership in your career for the good of your career, but the good for your company you're currently working for too, right?
I love this of the market thing. How many of you in here right now are resume ready? Completely updated, ready to go. That's awesome. I think that is a power move for your company, your individual company, because there is no shame spiral like having a bad day or having a bad run or having a bad vibe and thinking, oh, I got to update my resume, right? Like not that, then you start to spiral or you get that like comparison thing going on LinkedIn and all of that stuff. So I think that is huge. And when we talk about, I'm going to steal this phrase from you. I'll give you credit every time I use it, but I'm stealing it like tonight. Okay, well, you get credit now. But like to be of the market, I want to seriously encourage you. I just made a LinkedIn post about this today because I tell my students all the time, be a student of job descriptions. If you guys have not recognized the pivot to skills-based hiring that is happening right now, it is massive. And we are about to move away from resumes. We're, not that far into your future will we all have like our blockchain locker of our skills badges instead of a resume because they're inherently like icky dating apps and bad marketing slicks for us, and people don't even really fully understand what a resume is for. So I think there's some good stuff coming, but if you're not leveled up on what a company is putting on their industry, a company, an organization, a role, anything, get on LinkedIn, start getting yourself some alerts, start getting those, and start reading and comparing what are people saying on their job descriptions. Because a job description is a wish list for an organization. And do you know when it's your time? Sometimes the grass looks real brown when you start really looking at it from like right in on top of it. So there's some real perspective in that, I would tell you. But I love this of the market thing. I'm stealing it.
Okay, a couple of quick things off of that. If you haven't rewritten your job description in the last 6 months and compared it to your current one, you should, because either you can take that to say, here's what I'm doing, and you make a business case for yourself, or it can be an eye-opener on like, I'm not doing this job anymore. I want to do this job. Oh no, I hate everything I'm doing. I don't want to do Snapchat. Like, no, I'm going back. So that, the best advice I think I've ever gotten was from Todd Richardson, who said, leave a company when you are no longer growing. And every time I've made a career transition, that has been the main reason, is I didn't feel like I was growing and I left too late because I was afraid or I didn't have enough confidence that like I could do the next thing. And as I've coached like people on my team or friends, they're like, I don't know, like, but is the grass really greener or whatever? And not always it isn't. Like if you're running from it, that's bad. You should want to run to something. But I think knowing when to leave, it is like, are you still growing? Or like aligning to what you want right now. Like I'm in a season where growth and learning and being a sponge is a top priority for me. I don't know if that's a thing for you right now in your sunset. You might also want that. You use that term.
Woof.
I'm parroting your word choice.
You are.
Thank you. I'm done. That was the end of my
Drop the
point.
mic right on my foot. There you go.
Yeah, of
'Cause,
course.
I think the majority of this room is not guys. So I'm going to say this. Fear is the enemy of your career. Right? It is the absolute enemy of your career. Fear of failure, fear of missing out, fear of all the other stuff. And I would tell you, so I've been on a journey about the last 6 years, about 1,000 people I've interacted with in something that I call career truth, or we trademarked career truth actually. And I was gifted with a lot by doing this, which is people talking to me about what's going on. And I was able to sort of do trend analysis and all this stuff. And I'll use some data point that doesn't make me sound like an idiot or just a male chauvinist pig. But dudes will say they can do something in a way that women won't say. We all know that. I think I'll put that in the room. But that's fine. And I'm not saying everybody needs to run around and now not be who they are. But really do that, know thyself and have confidence that if you screw something up, it's going to be okay. And that if fear keeps getting in your way, you got to get it out of the room. You got to get over it. You got to get somebody to help you through that fear. Don't just act like it doesn't exist. Courage is actually dealing with the fear. So go deal with it and challenge yourself to move through it. And I'll call myself an ally because I hope to aspire to that someday. That's something that you need to get through, particularly for women that we see. Because I don't know how many times I spend time with tremendous leadership, women of leadership, and their confidence is like nowhere near what it should be in terms of what they can do. So I highlight that particularly here because I think if you own your own career, it's different for a woman to do that than it is for a man, to be clear. So we spend a lot of time on that. So be aware and fight the fear.
It's not just women. There's other pockets of our community that do the same thing. It's like you look at this job description and you're like, oh, I don't do all of that. I'm just going to throw this out there. The job I have right now, I was like, I can do half of that. And I don't know what I was doing, but I was like, I'm going to apply. And I kind of BS'd my way through some of it, but I didn't know what I was talking about. And they were like, cool, you're hired. And I was like, what did I do? That actually works? So yeah, I mean, to your point, it works. Like try to overcome your fear. I think it's also important to note that, if there's fear that makes sense, right? If the job description is like, we want you to stick your hand in a garbage disposal every day, and you're like, yikes, there's probably a good reason, but maybe check in with yourself, because I think this is a prevailing theme of what's going to happen, though, if that thing I'm afraid of does or does not happen. So
Fear is a element of passion,
Yes.
right? Sorry. So educate it.
Yes.
Right?
Educated.
Educated.
Away. You're-
yeah, go learn about it. Maybe it is as terrifying as you thought it was, but maybe not.
Well, and just going back to growth, like if you go to a job and you can do 9 of 10 things, how long are you going to grow in that? Like you're going to get tired of it sooner and limit your own growth and feel like you need something else faster than if you have 30%, 40% you need to learn.
Yeah.
You're extending it.
I'll tell you this. So because I own an executive search firm, I can say this. We score everybody on a bunch of attributes. We score them 1 to 5. 1 and 2 are some level of incompetent or incapable to do that one thing, right? So if you have 15 things you're going to evaluate, we're going to score you on a 1 to 5. So 5 is you can teach it, like you're a subject matter expert. 4 is you have incumbent level capabilities. 3 is you're capable, right? By definition, if I'm a 4 and I'm fully qualified, I'm now hiring somebody who probably won't be taking an increase in compensation, right? Because I'm kind of hiring against the spec that they've already done it. So most people who get hired are 3s, right? They're 3 plus something. They're not 2s or 1s. They're not incapable or incompetent. And I would say that you probably looked at that thing and said, I can do that. I just haven't done it yet. That's capable, right? So if you're evaluating those job descriptions on a scale like that, which is we've been doing this, we've done 10,000 different people in jobs doing this, works phenomenally, is they can do it. They just haven't done it fully yet. Think about it that way for yourself, right?
Awesome. All right. So we have about 15 minutes left. And as promised, I want to open up the floor to anyone who has questions.
So Jenna, even one thing that you talked about earlier, the idea of what happens when you reach your dream job and either it is what you want it to be and you've surpassed it, or it's not what you want it to be. What are the steps to slowly find out what is your dream job and what are you going to do to get to that point?
That's called a midlife crisis. And you spiral. No, I'm just kidding.
Which you know nothing about.
Right?
Yeah, please.
So the work in defining the next step that you think is aspirational, right? Just to get away from dream job, because she might have a fit. Why is that it? I think is the question. Like, what about you in maximizing your strengths or even filling a gap that you perceive on the way to somewhere you want to be is quite important. So why is that? That's the self-reflection, the self-knowledge gain on yourself. You can do assessments. You can do skills evaluation just of yourself and somewhat the way I just did it with the numbering system, if you will. There's ways to do that. I can talk to you about that if you want to. But you start to stack, where am I in a current state? What's the future state? I actually do like having somebody who's in a future state position that you have aspiration to possibly engage and to say, that's kind of a dream job for me, or I think it is. Go interview that person. Think about now the gap between you and them, right? And there's actually a technical skills gap probably, and there's probably a leadership and influence skills gap that is associated. And am I willing to go do the work to fill that gap between me and what I believe to be that job? And that job is represented usually by a person. And so do the research it takes with those kinds of engagements. Again, I call it open networking with effect, which is you're actually trying to get to somebody possibly you don't even know, by the way. We're in freaking Indiana, people. Like getting people to say, yeah, I'll meet with you is like the easiest thing on the planet. Take advantage of it, for gosh sakes. So, and have people around you that are going to test that with you. So don't just say, that's my dream job. No, that's not very well educated or informed. Do the work to think about, I think I'd like to do that. And then speak to somebody about it.
All thoughts are my own. Gonna preface that. I feel like there's a bit of two things happen. When you kind of reach what you thought you wanted, you are at a new level and your intake changes, which means your worldview changes. And then I think what you thought is your dream job then also just naturally evolves. But then you have to do the work to say, okay, then how do I get there? I also think there's something about like achieving your dream job or getting it that's a very inward thing. Like it's your dream. You want to achieve it. And I don't know if I've done that, but I feel like when I've set goals or like I want to do this or I want XYZ or I want a seat at the table, and then you kind of get it. You're like, oh, I mean, it's not bad, but you're like, I don't have this like, everything doesn't fall into place. And I feel like, at least for me, it shifted from, it's less about what comes next for me. Like, as long as I still feel good, it's more about then what can I do for others? And I feel like what you then view as your dream job shifts.
All right, personal experience. I wanted to be a teacher so bad, right? Got to do that. Taught at the high school level, watched a bunch of kids play on the internet, yelled at them from the back of the room like a crotchety old woman. It was not you. And thought, I've got more to offer. I'm going to switch classrooms. So I go from high school to college. And then was constantly the outlier. Was the only person talking about networking. I was the only person talking about this. I was the only person talking about this. I got a lot of shame from staunch traditional academics and thought, well, it's them. So I went to a different institution. BT dubs, not just them, just the whole industry, right? So by the third institution, it finally sunk in, you're not for this. This is not for you. You are not for this. Your classroom doesn't have to look like this. It can look different. So I left. Quick just overview, dream job at Tech Point. Third round of the interview, they called and said, hey, we have two of you in the final round. You're extreme polar opposites, both highly qualified. We're going to hire you both and split the job in half. And I'm like, what are you doing with the pay? Like, job description be damned. Like, what are we doing with the pay? Pay stays the same, whatever. literally they hired my new best friend. Natalie and I are tight. We are super tight for the rest of our lives. We're going to be good friends. What I learned in that 6 months was that I cannot do transactional. I am a high relator. I have to have an impact. I have to, if we're meeting, I got to leave with some way to help you, some way to pay back, pay forward, introduce you, do something. I am like high relational. That role was not high relational. And what I have found is, like, I tell people, when you don't get a job, rejection is protection and redirection. Sounds really good. Be a great rap song. If we go back to you are your own company, think about that in terms of every day when I got up to go to work, I felt like somebody had just beat me up before I even got in. That was my company telling me, this is not for you, right? Like, so what framed my next move, my next dream job, was, what am I not getting from this? Like, what nutrients, what feeding am I not getting? And it was high impact relationship. So now I am like literally the training and development coach for 80 accountants, who, by the way, I'm a lot for them, but love it. It is high impact, high relationship, same 80 accountants every day. I'm getting my soul fed again. I did not know a year ago that's what I needed. I had like, and here's the other thing I'm going to tell you where we're super bad at as Americans in general is delayed gratification and patience. I need for you all to understand that the way this environment is, your dream job is quite possibly 3 to 4 jobs from now. Your dream job may be a long game. You may have to take 2 or 3 jobs with these ridiculous titles and whatnot to build your skill set to get to that long game dream job. And then, spoiler alert, by the time you get there, you're going to be different. Industry's going to be different. Jobs are going to be different. But the journey will have fed you in ways you could have never predicted.
Can I, one thing, if I can burn out a metaphor of be your own CEO, build your own personal board of directors. Because we've kind of touched on it, but just to really takeaway moment here, like you need someone who knew you as a high-strung 14-year-old who can challenge you, that lives outside, like who can understand you. And you should have different people that serve different purposes on your board of directors. Maybe someone in your industry, maybe someone who's doing a job you think you might want. Someone who just knows you and your values really well. Someone younger than you who can challenge, help, be there.
Yeah. Sunset for the win.
But have those people who can be like, I mean, I remember when I got the text of like, Nicole, I think I'm going to an accounting firm. And I was like, hold on. Not my life. I support you no matter what. But let's chat. And as she walked through, I was like, yeah, this is perfect. You don't need my permission at all. Like, this is great for you. But I was like, this is so in line with you. And I think someone who can help challenge. I think I called you when I was thinking about turning down Procter & Gamble. And I was like, you've heard me talk about this for years. Am I crazy? And you're like, no.
There is an illusion out there that we finish this narrative in our head that they're too busy to talk to me. The amount of people that get reached out to on a daily basis and have someone say, I really want to hear more about your job. Could I get on your calendar? Could like fit in the palm of my hand. It is yeah.
Different.
Yeah, you need to take that chance because the worst they're going to tell you is no. But if they give you their yes, it could change your life. And they will absolutely think you're a unicorn because nobody ever asks them that.
I was just going to make one comment on that. I actually hired the person that did that. So
there you go.
She's like, hey, can I get 30 minutes on your calendar? I want to do your job. And I hired her.
So I have a bit of a thing with the dream job where I feel like, so I have never felt like I will ever have a dream job, because I think there's a part of it too where it's like, it assumes your passions have to create monetary value. So what's your advice on for those people who have felt like that?
So your purpose in life, right, is some way measured by something that you are doing for somebody else besides yourself. That could be any number of things that has nothing to do with making money. right? Mine became not being a terrible husband and father, kind of just to start. And if you would have told me when Ron was giving my little shellacking there that I'd be doing what I'm doing today, no way in hell. Like I've been like, wait, car salesman, recruiter. Yeah, that's kind of the same thing. So, but the way that we're doing it is quite different. So, and it's like more fulfilling. My relationship with my kids, my wife, all that sort of stuff. So that became the thing that, oh yeah, I got to go find some work to do because my wife will kill me if I don't do that either. So, but that fuel, that the passion for me was in the fulfillment of that purpose around something that wasn't anything to do with work necessarily. Like, so you're a phenomenal accountant or you're a phenomenal artist or whatever it is, and you feel like you're just kind of plugging it. Your fire on that thing, getting up every day, is probably for the good of the other, whoever that other is. And that's the way I see a lot of people jumping that chasm. And I had a young person tell me, I love golf. I have to work for Callaway Golf. And I literally about smacked him upside the head. Right. So it's not that simple, right? It's something bigger than that. And so I think that's where you can find your motivation, if you will, that had nothing to do with money. And by the way, when I stopped thinking about money, and I say this, like, that never became an issue again, the money. Because we all stress about money. Let's be serious. I mean, it's brutal. It's tough these days. That's not a simple thing just to say, but the more you can find those things that you care about, it's amazing how much better you become and more valuable you become because you're free to be your best self instead of constricted and frightened. So that's my way of answering that, I guess.
Nobody on their deathbeds ever like counting their money, right? Like it's all about legacy, where you derive your happiness, what fills your bucket. It's easy to sit here and say that, being financially secure and having that thing, but I think like you have to find that balance between, like ramen noodles every night, but I got this like thing over here that I love doing and not ever selling out one direction or the other. Cause I think like we talk a lot about work-life balance in some generations, but I think what we're seeing now, it's just a fluidity, right? Like I struggle with some people at work who are like struggling with the fact that like people are holistic and you can't like leave your problems at the door. Like that's such a like old school mindset. And they're like, wow, people need a lot. People, there's a lot going on in the world. Like people are gonna need a lot. Figuring out for you that fluidity that feels like balance. Like you could pay your bills and live a comfortable life doing something that is okay for you, but it frees you up to go do something that feeds you. And if you keep getting fed, if you keep that bucket getting full and you keep your passion alive, you have a lighter sense of yourself and of the world, and you are happier. And without getting too much into the secret, for those of you who remember that, you're probably the only one in the room, but good things will happen, right? Like that's the positive vibe. It's and my husband does this thing, he teaches 7th grade, and before they're about to like launch all the way into 8th grade by the end of the year, he always tells them, you are the sum of your 5 closest friends. I think like Jim Rohn or somebody started that too. Like thinking about like, are you with good, creative, positive people? Do you have them on your board? Do you have them around you? Because sometimes I have fallen into that trap of like, guys, I just don't know if I love my job. And then we all just start bitching, right? Or we get negative, or we really are focused on money, or everybody wants to go to Cabo. And I'm like, like just be aware, I guess, of all the choices that you're making because they're all very fluid.
Thank you.
Really fast.
Yeah.
Dream job doesn't have to mean that your passion aligns with it. I think it goes back to like, I had someone on my team who wanted to take 6 months off, go ride a bike on the Appalachian Trail and build houses along the way. The 30-person startup we worked for was probably not in a position to give her 6 months off to go do that thing. And I was like, I think you need to go. I'm not going to whisper because you can't hear me. But I was like, you need to go to Salesforce because they're going to give you 6 months off to let you go do that. And she did. And she's not like climbing the ladder. She's like, that's not her journey. That's not what she wants. She wants to go give back to others. And so it's like not working. It's like my job is filling a purpose. That's it. And that can be a dream job for you, is that it's allowing you to go do a purpose.
Thank you so much for dedicating or donating your time tonight to come and talk to all of us. I'm gonna go home and have like a really good long think about my life. No, I'm just kidding. And then thank you for all of you who have come out to this event and in your own way, shape, or form, are supporting indie marketers. So I do want to do a quick plug. We're deep into planning for our next event. We're targeting July for that. July 12th specifically. Oh, we've targeted very specifically. Yeah. And we're kind of working through the theme, but essentially it's going to be about AI and, how everyone's CMO probably came to him this week and said, how can ChatGPT replace you? So more to come on that. Thank you again for everything. And I hope you all had a wonderful night.